this is Caitlin here, and welcome back to Card Game Wednesday, the day of the week where we discuss all things card game related. Last week we had a kind of double barrel of videos and whatnot. I first released that video where I was discussing what I thought about the potential of 10 different starter deck rulers, and then we got a glimpse of those 10 starter deck rulers, or rather their artwork and their themes and whatnot. So we ended up with 2 uploads last week, so I hope you guys are all happy and caught up with things that are happening with the new cluster that starts in September. We've still got a couple more things to discuss about it, but I'm going to talk about that maybe next week or the week after, because I've got something that I really wanted to talk about. Kind of a similar topic from, I believe, around last year. It's funny how round about this time of the year, a kind of similar topic has arisen yet again in regards to a potentially broken ruler. I wanted to discuss the possibility that the new Scheherazade is potentially still too powerful, still too broken, and still too good. What do I mean by that? Well, recently we got a breakdown of some numbers and whatnot of rulers and everything from the recent Collinsville Grand Prix over in America. I tried to keep an eye out on different GPs happening in America as well, because that's really where the majority of the player base is, and probably a lot of where the majority of my subscribers are probably from. So I do try my best to keep on top of it and try and, like, you know, check out what's going on, what's being played, and everything like that. And I found it really interesting where after obviously the recent ban list and everything like that, where they said that, oh yeah, our problem to fixing Sherry is banning essentially 2 of her cards, which were Ruin Story and Evil Genie. At the time, I was like, I'm pretty sure this isn't going to help. You will probably have to end up having to outright ban the ruler itself, similar how we had to outright ban Priscia before we solved the situation. And looking at numbers, these numbers broke down, the ruler breakdown or whatever, were provided quite nicely by a gentleman in the Force of Will US group. Ernesto, I believe. Yes, Ernesto. So these numbers, I think, are quite interesting as I try to click through my different windows so I can see what is actually going on here. So in the end, the ruler breakdown, or rather the most played decks we had 75% of Scheherazade. We had 12.5 for Carrick and 12.5 for Gil the Conjurer. I find that actually kind of interesting how Gil the Conjurer has apparently made somewhat of a comeback. But looking at the top 8, the top 8 is basically 6 Sherries, the 1 Carrick, and a 1 Gil the Conjurer. Now, I'm not quite sure what other rulers were played, whether this is literally all the rulers that were played. I didn't see any information breaking down exactly how many different rulers were played, so I'll maybe need to look into that a little bit more. But it seems to be that, yeah, Sherry is still crushing top 8s here, and she's still taking names, and she's still, you know, beating people down. And I think the discussion that we need to have is whether or not maybe she's too broken. Is she in the same vein as Priscia, in that she is too broken and that she has to be herself banned? She's not banned, well, she's not banned in New Frontiers, obviously. She's banned in Wanderer, I'm pretty sure. If I double check the Wanderer ban list, I'm pretty sure she is banned in Wanderer. But yeah, there she is there. She's banned in Wanderer along with Priscia. Priscia obviously is also banned in New Frontiers, and she is also banned in Wanderer. So it's kind of crazy how they think that she's broken enough where she cannot be played in Wanderer, similar to Priscia. But for some reason they think it's, or at the time when they made the new ban list, they think it's okay to have Scheherazade still in the format, but not Priscia herself. Obviously, Priscia's brokenness is a different level of brokenness from Scheherazade. Scheherazade is obviously great in regards to counter spells and basically getting one up on your opponent, having an answer for pretty much everything they do, even without access to Ruin Story, which is probably one of her pretty good stories, considering that it's an SR, and it, you know, kind of goes really well with her in terms of, like, her stories and everything like that, and with her grimoire. I don't know if Evil Genie really was anything that people played. I know when I played the Scheherazade, or did I play a Scheherazade? No, I actually didn't play a Scheherazade, but from what I could tell from the last GP that we went to way back at the London one, I found it really interesting how from my friends, they didn't really come up across any of the Scheherazades that played the Evil Genie, so I'm not quite sure why they chose to ban that one instead of maybe one of her other stories that are also very broken, because if I remember correctly, if one of the other breakdowns was which cards were played within the Grimoire for Sherry's kind of side deck, what we call it, Grimoire, whatever. And it seems that the majority of the ones that were played, by the looks of it, were the Last Days of a Powerless Dragonoid, you know, dealing with the counters. Scarlet's Agony, again, a pretty decent one. And then, I can't remember what the other one was. I think Seed of Rebirth saw a lot of play. That definitely saw a lot. There wasn't a lot of Black Tears, if I can remember right, or Evil Elemental with Uprising or something like that. There wasn't really a lot of that in play. But I need to think about it here, guys, and just say, is Sherry as bad as True Beastmaster Priscia? They are both obviously very different rulers mechanically. They both do very different things. Obviously, both share green as a common colour, which maybe that seems to indicate that maybe green rulers are a little bit busted, because I remember way back when Rhea Cluster first started, and we obviously got Fair, and Fair was in top 8s quite a lot, but it didn't get to the point really where I felt like people were saying Fair needs to be banned. It never really got to that point. Obviously, I think the reason why is because there is some better answers to Fair. He's not like necessarily straight out counter everything kind of deck. He was just like kind of that deck where it's like, hey, if you get a bunch of elves in the field, you flip Fair, you can't touch Fair, and you swing in for heavy damage and whatnot. That's a lot of damage, as some would say. But I feel like obviously he wasn't as bad as, say, Priscia got, or how Sherry is becoming, because now she is going to be, or at the moment, she is the most played ruler in format by the look of it. Obviously, I think people were saying that with the potential of there being more Wanderer GPs, and because Sherry is banned in Wanderer, it makes sense that Carrick would start to get a little bit more popular. Some are saying that maybe he should be a bit more popular in New Frontiers, because he is, as at the present moment, he is probably the best option for a kind of red aggro deck. The only problem is that maybe red aggro isn't doing this so well in the format, considering that our main broken ruler right now is basically like a counter deck. She's got access to all these spells that are basically ruining your life, as opposed to Priscia, where she made things fly and have swiftness all the time, and she could OTK you. I don't know. I don't think Scheherazade has an OTK, if I remember correctly. I've not actually played Scheherazade myself, as opposed to previously when I did play Priscia, so I have an understanding of how those decks normally work. I have never played Scheherazade, and I've never played against a Scheherazade. I have somehow managed to avoid that at all costs, or rather I've been lucky enough to never have to be paired up against it. So I don't really know myself how that match goes. I just know that obviously you get access to the stories and whatnot, and there's a lot of countering, and a lot of shenanigans happen, and basically Scheherazade ruins your life, essentially, because she does all these daft things. But is she actually too strong for her own good? Is it going to be that probably the next ban list won't happen until potentially the new set starts, so we're going to see obviously the rotation out of Lapis Cluster. That will go, and then we will just be in Rhea and New Valhalla Cluster. I'm assuming that's what we're calling it now, because I don't think that it's been given a different name, so New Valhalla is. So I don't know whether or not she's going to necessarily get a little bit nerfed because of rotation. Most of the stuff that she uses are in Rhea Cluster anyway, so I don't think she would be impacted too much by that, unless obviously she gets hit with some bans to more of her stories, or whether she is outright banned herself. I don't know, because I felt like maybe Forcible waited a bit on Priscia for the longest time. It felt like a long time that Priscia was going about, and maybe it took them a little bit longer to resolve the issue, and they just outright banned her. Similar to how they banned like the key feature in Fox, which was Griffin, and then they banned Hook and everything for Lumia Hook. But I don't know whether or not she will either get more things from her deck banned, essentially maybe more stories, because if you ban too many stories, it means that you've really not got enough playable for like a full Grimoire. You need at least 5 in your Grimoire, so if you end up banning too many of the stories, you might not end up having enough for basically running Sherry herself. So then it's like, well, there's no point in playing Sherry because we don't have a full set of Grimoire cards to choose from. I don't think that would actually happen. I think what they would do is, if they were going to update the ban list in regards to Sherry, they would either outright ban her, or they would probably either ban a couple of the more prevalent maybe counter spells or more prevalent stories, I could see them maybe getting rid of Scarlet's Agony potentially, which is a little bit sad, I think, because I'm pretty sure Scarlet's Agony is the one that has really nice promo art, which is a little bit of a shame because I really like that promo. But I think maybe that would be the answer. They would have to ban either one more story that is really, really too good, which I think would be probably Scarlet's Agony. I feel like either that or Seed of Rebirth. Seed of Rebirth is actually a pretty good story in itself. I feel like Powerless Dragonoid is a really situational card, and it really only depends on who you're playing. If you're playing Carrick, then obviously it's the bane of your life and you hate that card. Or if you're playing Rhea, it is also the bane of your life and you don't like that card. But I feel like maybe just on the offset, unless you outright ban Sherry, I'm not quite sure how you would either solve that. I'm assuming you would have to get rid of Scarlet's Agony, or you would have to get rid of another one of her really good grimoires. Other than that, I'm not too sure, unless you would ban more of the dolls, and I can't think of any dolls that really help her out too much, because from what I could tell, my friend was showing me a Sherry list that he was playing, and it seemed to focus more on dolls than it did on the actual stories. I don't think he played the stories all that much. But what do you guys think? Do you think Sherry is too broken as she is? Do you think she needs to be outright banned, or can you think of some cards that maybe, if they became banned, would maybe slow her down a bit and make her a little bit more reasonable? At 75% of ruler breakdown, obviously, and pretty much dominating top 8, it seems to be like we're getting a repeat cycle here of, oh, one of these near the end of the cluster of rulers is actually pretty too strong, and we need to do something about it, because obviously Priscia got banned and whatnot, and she's banned in Wanderer as well, and since Scheherazade is banned in Wanderer as well, I feel like Forza will recognise that yes, she is maybe a bit too strong. She would basically be broken in Wanderer if you allowed her to play there. They did unban Reflect Refine though, so I'm pretty sure, if I double check in Wanderer very, very quickly, I'm pretty sure they did, unless they've not updated the website the last time I checked. But no, yeah, definitely, Reflect Refine are in Wanderer, so they got unbanned, even though they don't have access to their regalia. But I feel like they're still decent otherwise. I mean, there's still a lot of stuff in Wanderer that is obviously banned, that would make these decks even worse to deal with, like Leviton is still banned, you've still got Seven Winds is banned, a lot of the counter spells are actually banned in Wanderer, like Otherworld Dreams, Fair Spell, obviously Scheherazade herself, True Blade of Spirits is also banned in both Wanderer and New Frontier, so that card is basically dead. But what do you guys think? Do you think Scheherazade, or Sherry as I like to call her, do you think she's too broken? Do you think she's as bad as Priscia? Do you think Priscia was worse? What would you do to fix it? Would you maybe errata something on Sherry herself? Would you just ban her outright? Or would you ban a couple more of her grimoire cards, her stories? Or would you errata some of those? I would love to hear your opinions, guys, on what you think basically would fix the situation with Sherry. Is she too strong? Let me know down in the comments down below. And until next time, guys, I will see you all. This video was made possible thanks to patrons such as Alucard and Craig McCutcheon.